Welcome everybody. My name is Rob Mann, and thank you for joining us for the Technology for the Future of Healthcare Staffing webinar. All right. So as any good webinar will, we'll talk about what's up, LRS team. Good to see you, Amy. Thank you for jumping in the chat, guys. Jump in the chat. Let's be more interactive. Appreciate it. So thanks to Amy and the LRS team. Hopefully you guys are in a conference room, and we'll see you guys in Omaha soon. So number one, we're going to talk about current challenges and problems that we're seeing with our customers. We work with, I think, quite a few of the top 10 in healthcare staffing in the industry. So talk to a lot of you guys a lot. Number two, how technology is transforming the industry. Like every industry, it is transforming, talking about things like AI. If you're on Twitter, you can't go 10 seconds without talking about ChatGPT. And then a year ago, it was NFTs and crypto, but let's not talk about that anymore. Number three, how technology can transform the way you work, which is actually why we're here, to figure out how we can do more with less, how we can get the most out of technology. What's up, Philly? It was a rough game, but you guys are definitely one of the best teams in the league. Good to have you on, Tim. And then we will do a Q&A session at the end. And with that, let me introduce the actual person that you're here to see, my incredible coworker. What's going on, Brittany?
Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you all. Thanks for joining us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm a lead product consultant here at Kyloe, so I work with our clients to implement the technology solutions that we have, as well as just ensure that everything that they need, we are listening to, understanding, and adapting into our products where we can. So yeah, excited to be here today. Rob, back to you.
Yeah. By the way, Brittany, I had to change my shirt because I did not match Brittany close enough earlier. So
we're trying to be festive today. So.
Yes, it is. Oh, by the way, happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I am so sorry. I do know this because it is my wife's birthday as well. So happy birthday to my wife, Mandy, and happy Valentine's Day. All right. So jumping right in, if you are ready.
Ready.
All right. So Brittany, so you talk to a lot of customers that are live with our solutions a lot, and you worked in healthcare staffing like I did. So right now, what are some of the common things that you're seeing kind of affecting or challenging the industry, especially our vertical? And then also, we'll get to some of the opportunities that we have to help with it as well at the end.
Yeah, you're fine. I think a continual theme we're seeing in the industry is just the ever-evolving and rapidly changing needs for staffing, right? So if you work in healthcare, you know that one week it could be we have so many needs, and then the next it can drop out of nowhere. So I think that's one of the biggest things we see is just that unpredictability in the market. And then all of the things that come along with that, right? So we need to be able to respond as staffing agencies to those ever fluctuating needs, and also the ever-fluctuating work that might come along with those needs changing rapidly. So that's a big one.
Yeah, so I think, it's fast-paced. Some weeks, some days are, crazy. Some weeks or some days and weeks are a little slower. Some customers, could be easy to work with in terms of, compliance and stuff like that. So I think there's just a lot of nuance and a lot of flexibility, right, that you would need. So just thinking about it. All right. Yeah. So if it's so being that there's so much variety, maybe is the easiest way to sum that up, from orders, from recs coming in or jobs coming in, whatever you want to call them, to the complexity of working with these clients. How do you, it's easy to lose focus like I just did, and also lose track of all the things that you're trying to keep track of. So how important it is to have that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you think of the fluctuating needs, right, one week you have hundreds of needs coming in, but maybe you're not staffed to address all of those needs. What are you doing to ensure that you're not losing the opportunities that are coming in a given week because you're staffed for those lower volume needs, those lower volume weeks, right? So putting technologies in place to address those types of situations where you're managing not only the pieces of the workflow that come in that are kind of not not unnecessary, right? Because they're very necessary. But to your recruiters and to your salespeople, they're like, oh, this is the stuff that's bogging me down when I'm trying to work for those high need times, right? I'm trying to fill those recs. I'm trying to get quality candidates, but I have to do all this paperwork. I have to spend time inputting data into several different systems. I have to make sure they're compliant, so on and so forth. So it's looking at it as a holistic process versus, oh, we have a lot of needs this week, so we need to address the high needs this week. It's putting things in place to, one, be able to kind of identify what those needs might be based on trends from the industry historically, right? And we're never going to be able to 100% predict that, but there are things we can put in place to address and to kind of help level it out along the way, so that when those needs fluctuate, your team isn't necessarily being pulled in several different directions to address them, right? They're able to look at it head on and say, well, we have this many needs, but we've already got the right candidates in our system identified for those needs because we were prepared and because we took away a lot of that manual work that comes along with staffing in general. And we all know what the manual work is, right? We see it in our day-to-day. Even
you're giving me like PTSD. You're giving me PTSD.
Yeah, it's like even staffing adjacent anymore, we still see it. So.
Yeah. So just kind of give you some context, Brittany. I don't know if I worked in locum staffing. We would cover MedMal, so we'd have to do internal credentialing at the firm I worked at. So we would have to print out an application that was 12 pages, all of their board certs, residency, fellowship, medical school, all the ACLSs, and we had to put them in a specific order. And then my credentialing team was in Texas, so I would have to print it, put it in order, and then ship it to them. So if I could do that all in one place and not have to print it out and save all that money on paper and also my time, I would be really excited. So if anyone's anyone in locums, anyone doing locum staffing on the call, I'm just curious. And also, guys, if you have any input or anything that you guys are seeing that's challenging, let us know too in the comments. We'd love to get some direct feedback as we're doing this. So like I was saying, there's a ton of different things that take people away from their time of recruiting, and kind of not waste time, but really are bottlenecks. So what do you kind of seeing there, Brittany?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of anywhere where in your process you have to put a piece of data in one system and then copy it to another field in the same system and then put it on a document externally outside of the system and then make sure it gets integrated into a different system, right? Those are all the things that, why are we not automating this? Why are we not integrating those systems so that they talk to each other? Because that's where, one, it takes up so much time from a recruiter and a salesperson to make sure all that, and not even recruiters and sales, everyone in your industry and everyone in your business is impacted by this. So it takes up their time, but it also, opens you up to risk, because you're having a human manually enter the same thing 4 different times. The likelihood that something's going to go wrong and they're going to accidentally input the wrong thing in one of those places, it's, we're all humans. We all make errors. So
yeah, and then you have we can the time suck.
Yeah, exactly. And the potential for if something was wrong on your offer letter, well, now I have to deal with that, right? Now I have to deal with the repercussions of saying I will pay you this, but I can only pay you this, or vice versa, So those are the things you kind of, in my head, when I think about how do we approach, figuring out where our bottlenecks are and how we can fix them or reduce the amount of time and frustration that comes along with those bottlenecks. That's kind of how I like to look at it, is right. Look at your process as a whole. Where do things get stuck? And then what can we do to look at those and address them head on, rather than hiring another human being to come in and add to the mix, right? That's a lot of time spent training, a lot of money spent onboarding, where you could probably spend that money introducing a technology that would then take away a piece of that process that's not really serving anyone because it's not always being done to the best of its ability.
Like we like to say, automation for things that you don't need a human for, like repetitive tasks, and humans for the stuff like having conversations. So,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, what other things do you recommend, Brittany? Kind of ways to win, time back or win better compliance processes, workflows. What are some easy recommendations that you have?
Yeah, some really cool things that we're seeing in the industry right now, automating reference checks. That's a time-consuming thing that your users, somebody in your team probably is doing right now, calling a human and saying, can you complete this reference check? Then getting it sent out or taking the time to fill it out, right? That's a big one. I mean, and when you automate that process, then it's always going to be done in the same way every single time, collecting the correct information every single time. As well, like automating the compliance process as much as you can. I realize that typically you want a human to review because, having a set of eyes on the compliance process is always important. But automating those pieces that don't need to have human interaction, assigning the correct credentials based on what a client requires, that's a big piece that can be automated. Collecting those credentials, that's a big piece that can be automated. And then all you have to do is have a human go in and confirm, yeah, what we asked them for is what they gave us, checks all of our boxes, we're good to go. Rather than them being involved in the start to finish process and having to remember, oh, this client needs XYZ, let me assign those, so on and so forth. Some other things are just like taking the guesswork out of creating documentation. Where I used to work, we had, I think, 86 different versions of an offer letter because we worked in several different industries across several different brands. And then in healthcare, we know if you work in states like California or I think Alaska, Hawaii, all of these different places have different requirements in terms of how you pay overtime. So all of those things can really suck up people's time when you have to think about, well, which one should I use? And if I use the wrong one, what are the repercussions of that, right? Automating that process from start to finish so that when a user goes in to create an offer letter, we can use logic in the background to say, hey, can we do X, Y, and Z based on what's in the job, what's in the candidate profile, so on and so forth, so that when they create the offer, all that information is just pulling in there immediately.
I just want to check. You said 86, right? Well, no, I just want to. You said 86.
Yeah, 86 different versions. Yeah, and that was one of my. One of my pain points because I was in charge of getting that reduced down to 4, and we were able to because we used tools, we used automation tools and creation tools to be able to reduce that number significantly. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's a little frustrating where it's like, those are the things that if you identify them early on in the process, you don't have to spend so much time fixing it later, right? If you start thinking about those things, and agencies that have been around a long time, they understand how things have evolved and how things may need to continue to evolve so that they can stay competitive in the market.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll go back to that to your list real quick. But Tim said, efficiencies are everywhere in staffing. Scaling up and down with the peaks and valleys of market demand is an opportunity for tech. And yes, you are biased. So are we.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing, like, Tim brings up a good point, but introducing conversational AIs and chatbots, right, into those pieces in the process where you don't actually need a human communicating, right? I don't need to have a human to answer the same question 30 different times to 30 different people, right? A lot of those questions and a lot of those things that come in from talent and from clients can be relatively automated because those are things that are getting asked across the board, right? So if you put that conversational AI or the chatbots in place to handle those pieces of the process, then when a candidate gets to your recruiter, they're going to be a lot more familiar with your process, 1, and 2, your recruiter is actually going to be able to spend the time doing the things that matter, building the relationship, answering the the more in-depth questions, not the basic, where can I find my, exactly like reference automation, but where can I find my, where can I find my pay stubs? Where can I find how to apply to a job? Those are the things that you don't need a human doing, but humans spend a lot of time doing in the recruiting industry right now. So there's just tons of opportunity in so many different areas. And I think we would be remiss to not, ask people to start addressing those, because it's just going to benefit your industry. It's just going to benefit your business if you start looking at technology and how it can transform your processes internally.
Yep. And by the way, guys, if you ever get on a call with Brittany and I, and we think you have a bad process, we are the people who will tell you. We're also the friends that'll tell you have something in your teeth. So if you like those kind of friends, you should talk to Brittany and I, because we'll be like, "What are you doing? No. Here's how you could do it. You can continue to do whatever you're doing, but it's cool. It's cool. Anyway, those are all fantastic. So I heard a lot of automation. If you guys didn't know that was important, like 3 years ago, and it's still important. Different things are being automated. It is a fantastic tool to use, whether it's like machine learning to answer certain questions, i.e. like, will this webinar be recorded and shared later? Yes, it will. Like if there was an AI in the chat that could answer that. But anything that that nature, like, hey, is this job in X city? Well, your CRM knows what city it's in, and so your chatbot should be like, yes, it's in this city. Anything else you want to know? Like, and just keep that conversation rolling, but creating a great experience for your candidate or your clients, because they are being addressed real time, as opposed to having to wait for somebody to address those. So cool. All right. So kind of what we want to do now is show you guys a little bit about how our customers are using our tools along with Bullhorn to kind of work through this cycle. So I get to talk a little bit, Brittany. You can take a break, get a drink, you've been going. All right. So how do we see this working? If you think about this idea of automation, there's a few things that we can do for you. So Kyloe has the ability to, in one of our automation tools, hard code credential requirements against the candidate and the job, and which would flow down to the job submission. We will have company shortly as well, so you can pass those. Like you can set them at the company level and pass them down. That the company to down is not ready yet, but it will be shortly. But if you think about why that happens, it's really compliance, but also taking it out of the recruiter's hands to remember what's required for a submission or to put someone to work, and put it inside of Bullhorn, which is going to create more adoption and keep people from swivel chairing out of the system that you want them in. Now, as a locums recruiter, when I joined my first two companies, we had an email template that was a list of all of those things that I listed that go into an internal packet, as well as the external credentialing. And the only way we could track it was by remembering and like going against that email. So instead of it being in an email and like a list, we now put it in Bullhorn, and the credentials will get written back to Bullhorn, right? So even better is if Kyloe, if our automation tool makes credentials required and the candidate or provider doesn't have those credentials in the system yet, Bullhorn has built an automation on their end to Onboarding 365 and Talent Platform, which is Able, that says, hey, make these part of the required packet. So when a new nurse comes into your system through whatever source, and within 5 minutes, all of the required credentials for that type of nurse are against their record. And therefore, if you have Able or Talent Platform or Onboarding 365, they're already requirements. So your team, you can set requirement packets already in those tools, but now you may not need them because everything again is going to live in the system of record and be visible to the recruiter to make their life easier. All right. So now we set those requirements. All those things came in from the provider, and now how do you use them? Well, if you're Rob and you're a locums recruiter, you could use our submission packet creation tool or our doc merge tool to create the packet with all of the, like, it was like 70 pages sometimes. I hated wasting paper. I still get PTSD about it, Brady, honestly. But you can merge those together and then send them to your internal credentialing team as a PDF, because when I would scan them in, they'd be a PDF anyway. And they would be in the correct order. Or you can you can have these templates that you build out that are basically setting up the submission packet for you. Again, all throughout Bullhorn, your recruiter doesn't even have to leave. It has the cover letter, the resume for the nurse or allied professional, all the credentials, etc. And then you can use that to send out or submit through the VMS for submission. And then one of the biggest things that we said, and Amy from LRS is a big proponent of this, and their team loves it, is that when we send confirmation letters, all the data is put in the placement in Bullhorn, so we know it's correct, and then that data is pulled into the letter so that there's really no space for Rob, who is probably the most likely to create a typo, to mess with the pay rate or mess with something. It gets immediately written into the document for you and gets placed back where you want it in Bullhorn. So those are just, I think that's a good majority of what we can do for you. There's definitely more, but from a healthcare specific point, that is a really strong way to automate. And Amy, thank you, right? It just helps so much in reducing errors. And we have a case study with Amy on the website if you're curious about how creating confirmation letters through Awesome Docs is there. So guys, by the way, thank you for letting me give you a little bit about what we see our customers doing. Brittany, anything to add real quick?
Yeah, I would think just one more piece on this Kyloe for Healthcare structure. A big thing we're seeing with our clients in the creation of submission packets is also automating all that data that pulls into the cover letters, right? Because every cover letter essentially has the same information. They're just asking for it in a different manner. So
well, that's how the documents are too. Yeah, it's like, right. It's just...
So one will say, does this person have Epic experience? And this other person will say, what experience does this person have? So we can create rules and information, logic in the background of all these documents to say, if this candidate has Epic on their record, then pull a checkbox in. If not, put no, or so on and so forth. So there's a lot we can do to streamline the creation of these submission packets so that effectively your users, if they're putting the data into Bullhorn correctly, so that's a big if, right? But once they put the data into Bullhorn correctly, all of that data can be streamlined into those packets, and they don't have to do any manual data entry or very little for that matter. So it's just something I think it's underutilized right now in general across clients that are using and not using our tool, is the ability to get the data from the CRM into documentation. So that is something that I loved as a user of Kyloe for Healthcare products, and now as a person who implements them for our clients.
Yeah, and I say this on every demo, and I try to say this as often as possible. Being my automation background, and my recruiter background, I used Bullhorn for about 4 or 5 years. If the system is just a database where I'm just storing data, it's a little frustrating. But if I know that if I put data in the system and document it well and do what I'm supposed to do in the system, and then the system will do things for me, like mark a checkbox that says this guy has Epic experience if it's needed, I am so much happier to use said system the way that you tell me to. So if you want to drive adoption, by the way, your CRM and your data quality has so much to do with how your business, rises and falls, how much if mergers and acquisitions are on your mind, how much your business will be worth, because if you have crap data or if you're on some different system, right, it'd be hard to integrate you and also hard to understand the value of it. So if you want to drive good data, making the system work for your people, the people in the system, the sales and recruiting people, is invaluable. So now that I've said my piece, that's all we got for you guys. So any questions or comments, concerns, anyway you guys are going for Valentine's Day would be fan. Oh, there's Amy. Hey, Amy, look at you. Getting all quoted on here. Any recommendations for Valentine's Day's dinner in whatever city you're in? What do you got? Let me see. Is there any questions? We have a few already. Oh, there we go. I appreciate the marketing team. You mentioned you could automate the creation of submission packets. Can you please expand a bit more? Brittany, I'm going to leave that one for you.
Yeah, that works. So a big use that we're seeing, like we talked about, we can pull data from several different sources within Bullhorn to get into these submission packets. So we talked about our resume and our cover pages, getting the data into those documents from the fields in Bullhorn, but also, pulling in our credentials. So we can access the credential requirements and the files on those credential requirements to be able to pull those into the submission packets. We can access files on the candidate record to pull them into the submission packets. We can also access job level data. So rather than you having to type, oh, this job's, the start date for this job is this, and the job title will be this, we can get all of that pulled into those packets using what we call doc merge, which is a part of our Kyloe for Healthcare suite. So I think the creation of the submission packets, we can do at several different levels as well. So we can do like a candidate profile, which is a more generic packet. And then we can do a job specific packet, creating those at different process or different times throughout your process. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So some of our customers like to create like a generic profile when the nurse comes in, for example. You'll probably do that from the candidate. Some need it to do it to submit to certain jobs or VMSs, so they do it at the job or submission level as just quick examples.
Yeah, it looks like Amy had asked a question too. Which is, will Kyloe be able to tap into facility/company billing items in the future, specifically billing profiles, invoice terms, and discounts? Amy, I hope you don't mind me answering this, Rob, but this actually came up recently. So I have actually asked for these features using data tools, which is a part of our Kyloe for Healthcare suite as well, to be able to access these items. We can, I believe, currently access them through Awesome Docs, so which is another part of that Kyloe for Healthcare suite. But yes, this is a planned item in the future, so look down the line for that, and we'll keep you looped in as we get those features added.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. I'm glad it was helpful. We'll answer one more. You also mentioned Kyloe being able to create credential requirements. Are there other items that can be automated using Kyloe for healthcare? There's lots of things that can be automated. Do you want to take a crack first, and I'll finish up?
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we have this tool called Data Tools. That's a part of our Kyloe for Healthcare suite, and with Data Tools, specifically our data rules piece of that tool, we can create rules to automate a lot of information. We can do automations to pull data from, the candidate into the placement, the job into the placement, reducing the amount of correlated fields you need to get the data from one place to another, from the company to the placement. We can use the placement data to update candidate records. So we could do a rule that says if a candidate has, a placement that is currently in this status with these dates and X, Y, and Z other criteria are met, then take these actions on the candidate record. We can also automate a lot of the maintenance of data in your database. So formatting phone numbers to make sure they're streamlined across the board. We can update a candidate's job title based on their most recent work history and Bullhorn. So there's a lot of information that we can streamline using our data rules product, not project, to ensure that your database is as healthy as it can and that you're maintaining that data integrity that your team is working hard to implement.
Yeah, I love the idea of skills. So some of the stuff that you can some of the stuff that you can do is like, if you want to get better at segmentation or marketing or semantic AI matching, is if you want to, like, if a lot of people pull data in different ways into Bullhorn or whatever ATS here I'm using, everyone's probably on Bullhorn here, right? But let's be honest, it's even like Salesforce or HubSpot, if you're in a true sales environment like we are, data gets pulled in a certain way. So if a skill gets pulled in, it may not populate the other skills that we know are, or like if a category gets pulled in, like allied health, the other skills that really match that category don't get pulled in. And that might limit the way that you can match or that you can segment out your data. So I really think that that's important. So like a good example is someone who's a new, like let's say you can place someone who's a new grad, maybe you're doing perm, like nurse placements. A new nurse comes in, and we know that every new nurse that comes out of nursing school has these 5 things. Or if we know every critical care nurse who has 5 years of experience, we can pretty much guarantee that they can do these things. Obviously, you would ask them before you place them somewhere, but to help you get to more people quicker, you can actually use that kind of idea, that logic. Like, hey, if it's this category with this amount of experience, do this, or this job title with this amount of experience, say this for their skills. I really like that, especially because my marketing brain gets excited by better segmentation. So if you haven't thought about that, definitely give it a try to kind of map it out for your team and see if you can find those some pieces. All right. Well, guys, it is 11:34. We managed to keep it under 35 minutes. So, Brittany, thank you so much. Amaya, thank you so much. Who's been in the back helping us out with questions and all the technical stuff. If you guys have any questions, or if you need a friend to tell you that you have stuff in your teeth, aka we don't know why you're doing things that way, definitely feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you. Brittany is an expert at all things, more travel. I have a lot of experience with locums, which takes a lot further and a lot longer to get to actually billing. But I somehow did it for 6 years. So anyway, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I am Rob. That's Brittany, and we appreciate you guys. It is recorded. It'll get sent to you. Thank y'all.